And that, over 100 years ago, Einstein posited this beautiful
Right,
equation.
right,
Everything is energy equals mc squared. And every
right.
physicist understands this so well. What do you think it is about medicine as a whole that yet hasn't embraced this idea of energy when every other science seems to have embraced it, really? And every ancient culture, going back to ancient Chinese, Egyptians, and everything, really saw it as the cornerstone of everything. Why is medicine so lacking?
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to sound critical, but I will be critical. Unfortunately, I still think medicine is controlled mostly by lobbyists and
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies, and you can't patent an energy. There's no thing you patent. You have red light therapy that is sort of now being accepted in
Mhm.
conventional for inflammation. We know that aesthetics use red light therapy for, that kind of thing. And it's, oh, well, it must be okay then. What I always say to a physician who questions that, I said, well, do you recommend mammography? Do you recommend
Mhm.
MRIs? Do you recommend CTs to people? Yeah. Well, what do you think you're doing? That's called energy.
Yeah.
Because, when you do a mammography, you're not looking at a lesion. You're looking at the energy that's being produced by abnormal energy. So why don't you think you can use an energy medicine to treat that problem, as opposed to you can use it for diagnosis, but you don't think therapies are viable? But the pharmaceutical industry controls so much of how medicine and it funds research, and people have sort of come to believe. And unfortunately, I still think a lot of society who have not been exposed to alternatives believe that there's only one style of medicine.
True.
And we could go back to, 1911 and the Flexner Report that basically got rid of 163 so-called med schools and said, well, these are the only people who can now practice medicine. And so we saw the disappearance of homeopathy. We saw the disappearance of a lot of eclectic type therapies, a lot of botanical medicines. Even, back in the 1800s, they were using electrical type things, and that sort of went by the wayside because Carnegie and Rockefeller, who were basically funded that study, were basically controlling the medical schools and have to this day. So it will come to a point where people will realize that taking a medication doesn't solve their problem. They may feel better, but they actually never get better. And I always say in my workshops and seminars, I said, if you have a headache and take Tylenol and it goes away, does that mean you have a Tylenol deficiency? No. Well, that means you still have the headache, you just don't feel it. So, and the same thing with any medication. And I'm not against medication. Many of my patients take medications because until they are aware that there's other things they may be able to do. I would say the most common one that I see is high blood pressure medicine.
Mhm.
Many, many, many patients, when they sort of embrace the approach of biological medicine, they start realizing that, mind you, my blood pressure is too low. Maybe I shouldn't be taking this medication because, instead of controlling it, it's actually dropped it too low. They stop it, and suddenly they don't have high blood pressure anymore. So their blood pressure was not due to a lack of a blood pressure medicine. It was due to an imbalance metabolically, or their nervous system, or some other issue, or some of their teeth maybe. That takes, and the approach with biomed that I always hear, well, it takes too long. Well, it's the rest of your life, really. Health isn't something that it's not, I always say it's not a 12-week program or a 12-step program. If you want to be healthy, you do it every day. And an affirmation that I have patients say is, I said, when you get up in the morning, look in the mirror and say to that person that you see is, what are you going to do for me today?
Mhm.
Not what are you going to do for somebody else? What are you going to do for me? And what types of things can you do for yourself that are not being egotistical, but thus are supporting your level of wellness, the purpose that you're here, on this planet for this period of time that you're here. And people start to understand that, the way I practice medicine isn't to try and treat your illness or treat your disease. It's trying to help you understand why you have it. Because
Yes.
when you understand why you have it, you can make a choice to do something about it or not. It's really your choice. But if you don't know what's causing it, you don't know what to do. But,
Right.
when you start introducing people, and, people say, well, change is hard. Yeah, you're right. It is. Change is hard, but so is health. And, being in practice for so long, many of my patients are quite elderly, so they're retirement age. And so many have said, "Oh, if I'd only known 30 years ago that I could have
Mm,
made this change and I wouldn't be having these problems now, I would have made it 30 years ago." And it's, yeah, the horse is out running down the road and the barn door's still open. So it's like we can close the barn door, but it's going to be hard to get the horse back in the barn,
of course.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting that when it comes to health, I feel like people don't really have a full grasp of what that really even means to them. We understand, even let's say expectations, we understand if someone's overweight, they're going to need weeks and weeks of dieting, going to the gym, soreness after the gym, sacrifice, something there to see results. And then it's a good thing. And I wonder sometimes if it's not, maybe we can't see a liver healing, right? We can't see, people love anti-aging. They'll spend tens of thousands of dollars on surgeries, Botox, but you talk to them about their liver disease or something and that they need some kind of detox IVs or homeopathic and it'll take weeks and they don't want to spend $1 on it.